Asia's Best Stand-Up Comedian 2014 and winner of the 2016 World's Funniest Person competition. He's worked tirelessly for the last 30 years, helping build an industry of professional comedians locally and internationally. Cuba Cerita welcomes Harith Iskander, the godfather of stand-up comedy, to our series, The DNA of Nation Builders. Assalamualaikum and a very good morning, everyone. We are so excited today because it's a special edition of our podcast, Cuba Cerita, and we have a special guest, and I just like to welcome him in my own way. Harith Iskander, Harith Iskander, Harith Iskander, Harith Iskander.
That's my walk-on tune for
Really?
a show that I've done, and that piece was written by a friend of mine, Pachai.
Oh, okay.
And if you're not in the music industry, you might not know Pachai. But if you go to karaoke and you put in Manbai's Kau Ilhamku, there's this black and white video that comes on. Kau Ilhamku, right? You see the guy I think he's on the right or the light, playing the guitar, and he's just saying, that's Pachai. So he has been seen by more Malaysians on the karaoke video than we even know who he is. Because as you know, everyone sings
Kau Ilhamku.
Kau Ilhamku in karaoke. So
Right,
there you
right,
go.
right.
So that piece was written by Pachai.
I mean, that tune is so synonymous with you, so I couldn't help but
Thank you.
but resist. Now, first of all, thank you, Harith. It's you're busy as it is, and we're so happy to have you.
So you said this is a special episode. Now I'm thinking the others who are watching who you had. Saya tak special ke? Okay, thanks Azman.
Actually, everyone who comes on, you're the special guest. But it's special also because this is Monday morning, 18th of December, and you and I dah pakat last Friday. I said, Harith, whichever way, we're going to wear our respective club jerseys.
That's right. So it was a draw early this morning.
And we said, irrespective of the score, we're going to wear our jerseys. So to our fans out there,
It's a fair result.
It's a fair result. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll be frank with you. Anything better than last year's score or
Yes.
whatever it was is a win for Man U.
7-0.
Oh, no. But anyway, I mean, it's all fun. And again, I mean, Liverpool are playing well,
Yeah.
Man U, for some reason or other, have just not got the rhythm. But
That's a whole different episode.
And it's a whole different episode.
That could be a 6-hour special.
Okay, so, Cuba Cerita is, a new leadership podcast, actually. And our pioneering theme is the DNA of Nation Builders. And, you're one of the first names that came to my mind. Yes, it's not about those who build highways and bridges and infrastructure, but there are so many leaders who have actually contributed towards the beauty and fabric of our nation through the people. And, we respect you for that. And hopefully through the course of this interview this morning, people also realize just how much more beyond what we see of you. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, it's going to be up close and personal, and I really just like to maybe kick things off by asking you, how did the name Harith Iskander come about?
So I think my parents are screwing with me. So number one, Harith, Harith. If you know in Bahasa Malaysia, there's no words with th.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
People will, Harith, no Harith, Harith, no Harith, Harith. No, whatever. And then Iskander. It's not Iskandar.
Yes.
It's Iskander, Iskander.
Okay.
So 98% of media and print have gotten it wrong over the years. And at one time, back in the newspaper days and all, I'd be like, okay, Iskander. And, but now it's like, whatever. So commonly out there, I might be known as Harith Iskander, whereas it's actually Harith Iskander. So my parents were just like setting me up to have misspelt names throughout my lifetime. So
I don't know whether this is an actual fact, but you were born in Johor, right?
Yes.
And apparently, I looked up at the time when you were born. Okay, not the current sultan, but his father was the Raja Muda of Johor. Okay, and he was Sultan Iskandar.
Okay.
Okay, that's one thing. And apparently, Sultan Iskandar Ibn Amru, Sultan Ismail. So he's the father of the current sultan. Yeah, and the current sultan is Sultan Ibrahim Ismail Ibn Almarhum Sultan Iskandar. Now, I don't know whether your parents, particularly your father, because your father is Musa.
My father was from Johor as well.
And is he Musa bin Ibrahim?
Musa bin Muhammad.
Muhammad. Okay, okay.
But he was Johorian as well.
Right.
Jawa.
So you may have been named
After Iskander,
Harith,
but with a little
Iskander.
twist.
Ah,
Iskander.
okay.
There you go.
And just are you the only child, or you got your brother?
I had an older brother. He passed away.
Oh, I'm
He was
sorry.
Muhammad Johan bin Musa.
Muhammad
So he
Johan
grew
bin
up
Musa.
with the name Joe.
Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Joe
just the
Johan.
two of you.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And there's a lot that's written about you. Your mother, she was British, yeah. Your father is Malay, and they met while they were on duty in Congo.
So my mother was at the time was although she was from England. She's very adventurous. I think after she finished her, I think in those finishing school, they had in those days in the 50s. She flew off to New York. And she went to work in the United Nations building as a secretary. Remember typewriters?
Yes.
So she was a secretary in the United Nations. And my father was in the army, Malaysian army, Royal Regiment. And then there was a civil war in the Congo, Africa. There was a civil war. So United Nations sent over peacekeeping forces, including Malaysian army went there. And my mother tells a story that she's in the typing pool. And back in the 50s, they would have like 50 secretaries in a typing pool. And the boss came in and said, all right, we need some staff to go over to the Congo. Who wants to go? And apparently my mother was the only one who put up a hand. So they were like, all right, you.
Wow.
And they literally put her on a plane, a U.S. Marines plane with like 200 G.I. Joes. And this one petite English woman. And then apparently when the pilot saw my mother and saw the 200 G.I. Joes, he was like, you're not sitting back there. You're going to sit in the cockpit. So she flew to Congo in the cockpit of a U.S. plane. Very adventurous. And of course, there in the Congo, when's my father, who was Sandhurst trained, style dulu. Askar dulu, the officers semua steady, very like you never understood what they were saying when they talk. So he was very steady, and his name was Musa Yankee. So in those days, in fact, to this day, an old gentleman will come up to me and say, "Oh, I know your father, Musa Yankee." So all the soldiers had nicknames because there could have been 12 Musas.
Yeah, I
so
can
they
imagine.
Musa Pisau, Musa Pistol, Musa Snapang. So my dad was Musa Yankee because the drain pipe jeans that they wore in the 60s were called the Yankee jeans.
Wow.
And my father drove a red MGA.
Wow.
The top down and all. So this stylo lah sikit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So that's where they met in the Congo.
So you grew up in JB?
No, I didn't grow up in JB. I was kind of born there.
Uh-huh.
I think my father was stationed in the army camp in Muar, Kelong or Muar. And then I've no real recollection of Johor Bahru.
Okay.
But we moved to KL very early on and lived in MINDEF, Ministry of Defence, Jalan Gani. So I grew up, my early memories were anak askar in MINDEF in Gani. And then subsequent to that, Ampang and Ulu Klang and stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So our sessions are a lot about reflection. Now that we're relating these stories from your childhood, would there be any particular memories of, maybe how your father was that may even shaped you to be the father that you are today, or anything that, that
Well,
that
if you
arose?
if you watch my stand-up, my parents are a reoccurring theme because I came from what is, slightly different Chiluk background. In school I was called Chiluk because you were mixed English and Malay. Or, some people call me cendol, which I don't understand because cendol, which part is green? So, but I do know that in school, because of my difference, I think I grew into this using the comedy, the jokes, as a deflection because, at that time it's more like teasing, or no, it's not bullying. It was teasing. Oh, celok, oh, cendol. Oh. So because of who my parents were, I was the slightly odd one out. I wasn't Melayu. I was celok. I think there was one other celok in the whole school, but so my parents, being who they were, I think created the slight difference in me, and how I then handled it, or what I then developed into, I think came from there. My mother was British, so she had the British sense of humor. If you remember, Faulty Towers,
Yes,
and shows like that, where very dry, straight face.
Yes, Minister. And
Yes,
all those.
Minister was my favorite, my mom's favorite show. Back in the day, we used to watch Yes, Minister on black and white TV.
I can imagine.
Remember?
Yeah,
Those days?
yeah.
So, I think the sense of humor came from her.
Okay.
But the humor was not to say forced. It was used to sort of avert what was the initial teasing back in the day. So this is how I remember it.
Wow. So in school, you were already
I was
the
considered
joker type person?
This was told to me by my friends.
Ah.
I didn't really recall it that way.
Okay.
When I became a comedian, the one yang kat sekolah dulu yelah, memang juga. Of course, it was obvious. I was like, really? Bro, you were the one kat belakang class. Apparently, I was when you choose your seats at the beginning of term, I duduk belakang.
Oh,
and then,
I see.
And then while the teacher's teaching, I would do sound effects, Star Wars, and, X-Wing fighter, and and I would make them laugh. Then the teacher would be like, oh, apa kat belakang tu? And then we would end up standing on the chair, or kena rotan. We had rotan in those days. That was a badge of honor. So my friends remember me as the ones who made them laugh.
Okay.
But I don't have a absolute. I was just, you're just being you.
Yeah.
But so all this that I'm saying is in retrospect.
Yeah.
When I look back on it, okay, so I was humorous. Why was I humorous? Oh, because my mother had that British sense of humor. But I do remember, I used it because what you resist persists. So when it comes to bullying or teasing, if someone calls you, "Oi, gemuk," and saya bukan gemuk, and it persists. Bullies look for the resistance so they can push back.
Yeah.
But if someone goes, "Oi, gemuk," and you go, "Yeah, aku gemuk," after a while, they do it 2-3 times, he's not reacting, forget it lah, and they move on. So I used humor as just a deflection of what seemed awkward at the time lah.
And school was at St. John's?
St. John's, primary and secondary. I do remember that Jane Nazir Razak was my classmate until Standard 5, I think, when his father passed away.
Okay,
and
yes.
They moved off. And as well as Hussein Onsan.
Yes.
They were both my classmates.
Harith, right?
Harith,
Oh, he's Harith.
Yeah.
Okay. And you keep in touch with your
Now
friends?
I wouldn't say keep in touch with I keep in touch with my secondary. So the year of 83, which is the Form 5. So we had a 40-year anniversary recently.
Wow.
So about 60 of us showed up, and we had one of the teachers from St. John's.
Yeah.
So it's that year is more strong. From primary school, not so much memories.
Yeah. But I guess, St. John's and even schools in those days, we were very open, and everyone was different in their own way, but we had a lot of similarities, and it was
because
fun.
St. John's is in Bukit Nanas, but then I do remember I lived in Ampang. But we all came in from Subang, Ampang, wherever into St. John's. So it wasn't how schools are now. It's like more, you live in Taman Tun, you go to school in Taman Tun. You live in Puchong, you go to school in Puchong. So you are surrounded by your whatever community happens to be in that area. Whereas St. John's, and I think VI and a few other schools as well had that. Budak Ampang, budak Ceras, budak, stuff like that.
And Convent Bukit Nanas was just next door.
So Convent Bukit Nanas had
you must mention that.
Of course, we were an all-boys school. People may not recognize this. And Convent Bukit Nanas is an all-girls school. But when they left school, they had to walk past St. John's.
Had to, kan?
So we just happened to be standing by the chendol stall dekat luar AIA building. Happened to be there. No real reason. Just Then I would go to Lebu Ampang bus stop. It took a bus back in those days. Then you would see the St. Mary girls and the BBGS girls And then there's the whole.
Ini jenis yang Saint Mary and Baby Just Girls, dia melencong lah lalu ke jalan panggan.
Lalu dia.
Those were the days. Anyway. So, but it's fun. It's fun reflecting. So, I also know that in school you were also a footballer. In fact, I know that you even played for the school football team and you guys were state champions.
Oh, well, I was footballer. I was number 12. The first reserve.
Reserve? Okay.
So I was on the team, but I never actually got to play a game. Full disclosure. I think the coach just put me on the team because I showed up at practice all the time. I really want to be on the team. So, but I know my limitations. I was good, but just not good enough, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, when you really enjoy something, but then the talent kicks in where you may put in the hard work, but if you just don't have that little kaki bangku kan.
Okay.
But it was fun being on the team, and yes, we were state champions.
Yeah.
And that was the only time we were state champions.
Actually,
I
true.
think, back in
St.
the
John's
day.
was hardly ever a chance to be state champions. And I think in those days it was like Selangor State, right? It was the biggest
That
state.
was the biggest state. There was no wilayah persekutuan kind
Wow,
of thing.
Wow, fantastic.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, 5 of the St. John's players of that year were in the Malaysian under 17s.
Wow.
Because I remember they went off to Singapore to play a tournament.
Yeah.
Or something.
Those
So
were
it's
the
pretty
good
cool.
old days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nice to reflect. So this thing about you, diligently being in training and even being on the fringes, is that something that, in reflection, you were always like hardworking towards something or diligent?
Here's the thing. I'm never going to sit here and say, oh yes, I was very, very hardworking, because if you want to talk about hardworking, my SPM results, I'm just saying not quite there lah. If they were there, I would have been a corporate person, managing CIMB or something.
Like Nazir lah, like jail.
Yeah, but I was just not even grade 3, but grade 2, which I just almost masuk grade 2. So, but then I realized though, and I say this to any kids in school or students, or it's like, especially in my experience, when you leave school, like if I look back at school, the really smart one, the budak-budak yang 9A and all, are not anywhere today. But the ones who are out there and successful, both in corporate world and in entertainment, and were all the what I would call street smart. The not quite there, and they would fail science or fail maths. Tapi they and in school, yang isap rokok and all. But today they are running multi-million-dollar corporations of their own. They're entrepreneurs. They're out there. So I just would say that it's just some. Education is education, and so I wasn't hardworking in a classic sense, but I think what I enjoy doing, and what I really, if I enjoyed it, I focused on it, and then I became hardworking in that. So football, music at the time as well. I love playing the guitar, but at the time, apa mau masa main music, main bola, kita more lawyer than engineer, stuff like that.
Doctor and such.
But I would say to anyone now. Hard work is still relevant, even in the social media, because of now everyone's, you do a TikTok video and you become famous overnight. But if you look at the successful TikTokers, YouTubers, and people out there, if you look at what they do, they actually put in consistent hard work. Consistent work, which actually translates as hard work. So it can come overnight, but to maintain it, to sustain it, you still need to put in the work, the consistency and all. So was I hardworking? I wouldn't claim I was, but I think when I found myself enjoying something, the concept of it's not working, it's just doing that work. Because I worked in an advertising agency, my first job with Leo Burnett Advertising Agency.
Okay.
And I look back on it now, I was there for 2.5 years. We were on shoots, 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, sometimes overnight, 24 hours. And I don't remember looking back going, penat lah, nak balik lah, boring lah. No, I just did it. You go back at 4 in the morning and you have to be on set again at 7 in the morning. You just did it. And then after a 3-day shoot, you just collapse and sleep for 12 hours. But I don't remember because I'm going to sound like an old man here. You know, I hire younger people now, and then, kena kerja weekend ke? Kena malam ke?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I don't remember doing that.
You don't remember
Like,
questioning. Yeah.
boss kata, malam ni kita overnight kerja. Okay lah.
Yeah.
Just,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I mean, I guess no disrespect to the generation today, but maybe they see priorities as different. Maybe they already got plans, you know.
So maybe that is that. Maybe because I didn't have plans. Girlfriend tak ada, duit tak ada, kerja lah.
So I understand that you actually left the advertising line because you were into films and filmmaking. And
So I
what happened?
studied film and TV productions. My parents worked very hard when they were alive to be able to send me for further studies overseas. So my dad, although Malay, didn't take any Bumiputra loans. I only found out much later.
Really?
After I was studied overseas and I came back. Then my friends said, I dapat this loan, this. And my parents said, what? Bapak you tak ambil ke loan? So then I realized, I found out that my father refused to take any loan, although he was well entitled to, for me, unless it was from the army, a grant or loan from the army, because he felt he was entitled to that.
Okay.
Not as a race, but as his career.
His role, yeah.
So he didn't take a Mara loan or whatever loans they had in those days, but I think he accepted as an officer in the army, you do get some kind of grant for your education, blah, blah, blah. And I think he probably didn't directly say this to me, but I choose to take it as he wanted me to learn to compete on a level playing field. Because unpopular opinion here, this whole idea of what's the word? You know, being allowed certain rights just because subsidized. Mentally, I just look at it like this: you're in a 100-meter race. If you are allowed to start 10 meters ahead of everyone else, you may win, but there'll come a day, as life is, when you all start on the same line, and then suddenly you'll find yourself 10 meters behind, and then you'll be wondering, like, why? How come I've been winning all this time? It's because you didn't have to try as hard to make up that 10 meters, because you started 10 meters ahead. And this subsidy mentality, in my opinion, is actually what holds back a lot of people, because you go through a subsidy mentality your whole life, and then you hit the ground in a modern international setting. Tiba-tiba it's like, I feel left behind because all these other individuals of my age group are coming in with So
we're still feeling disadvantaged.
and then they start feeling disadvantaged. And I don't even know what your question was at the beginning.
No, because you actually ventured into film.
Okay, so I went overseas, studied film, TV, came back, wanted to become a film director, wanted to be the first Malaysian to win an Academy Award. So Michelle Yeoh, thank you very much. 40 years later for doing that. Then I went job hunting, as it was. You buka newspaper, New Straits Times, Star, tengok job. And then, so I applied to a lot of production houses. And I applied at one production house, and it was a video editing house, and they looked at me, my degree and all, they were like, I think you're a little overqualified for this. Then eventually I got an interview with Leo Burnett Advertising. Prior to the late Yasmin Ahmad's time.
Yes.
And I ended up working in advertising. So there for 2.5 years, but it was a great training ground because advertising taught me all about detail. When you do advertising, you go into McDonald's, you tengok the gambar. Wow, cantik ni burger dengan the tomato sauce coming out, and then the lettuce like fluttering in the wind, and then you get the burger like, ini tak sama dengan gambar, because that gambar took 4 hours to set up, and that was me doing the fluttering lettuce and the tomato and the lighting chung with the cutter. And
just to get
you have 200
patties,
200 buns, 200 lettuce, and you campak until you get the ideal. Now I do notice, I'm talking about 20 years ago. Now I do notice they get a bit more organic. They let more not so perfect gambar, but in those days it was perfect.
And because with all the digital ability nowadays is different.
Yes.
So you spend time after that in filming.
Then, I don't know whether you remember Jangan Ketawa.
Yes.
Kids out there, just go to YouTube, type in Jangan Ketawa, TV3, comedy, and I ended up leaving advertising and shooting Jangan Ketawa, which was a comedy series back in 1990-91.
Wow.
And it became the highest rated TV show on TV, Malaysian TV at the time. We only had 3 stations, TV1, TV2 and TV3. And at that time, it had every Wednesday night, it had a 6.2 million viewership in a country that maybe we had 20 million. So almost 1/3 of the country stopped to watch Jangan Ketawa. This is prior to social media.
In those days,
lah.
wow.
So that kind of launched me into the entertainment world, because I started off by writing and directing.
Yeah.
And then halfway through, ended up in front of the camera as well.
Okay.
Because some of the actors' stuff, team couldn't carry out what I had in my mind. So I just ended up doing it myself. So I became one of the cast as well.
Okay.
But I started off, and very thanks to the late Linda Chong, who is the producer who brought me into that. Yeah.
So, I mean, I know if there's so much written about you. I mean, there's a whole Wikipedia, pages and pages of you.
I need to go in there and
And
I don't know.
correct it.
Anybody of you guys know how to wiki? You got to be a contributor. You got to be contributor, and then you got to 10 times. And alamak, malas ni.
Tapi again, it's all unfiltered.
It's unfiltered.
In fact, there's even a Wikipedia in Malay of you. All 3 sentences.
Oh, sebab saya liberal, tak bahasa Malaysia.
So okay, so I mean, I must mention, maybe the audience may not realize this, but you also acted in a major film with Jodie Foster and Chow Yun-fat.
Anna and the King,
Anna and the
1999 was a Hollywood movie. It was here for 4 months. They had 1999, 20, how many years ago? 23,
Yeah, actually,
24 years ago.
Yeah.
They had a budget, I think at that time was 100 million US. So 100 million US is what? 500 million Malaysian.
Crazy, yeah.
And they were here for 4 months. And I ended up being on set for 4 months, because I was... Anna and the King was based on the musical The King and I.
Yes.
With Yul Brynner.
Yes.
But this was Anna and the King. It wasn't a musical, it was a romantic drama. So the King was played by Chow Yun-fat,
Yes.
Asian legend.
Yes.
Jodie Foster was Anna, 2-time Academy Award winner at the time for Silence and the Lambs and The Accused. And then Chow Yun-fat is the King, and he has 3 bodyguards behind him.
Okay.
So I scored the part of one of the bodyguards. Chow Yun-fat is 6'4", 6'3".
Wow.
I played his bodyguard.
Okay.
Inilah bodohnya Hollywood. Siapa yang gemuk botak tu jadi bodyguard kat belakang tu? The
Well, you
reason
look very much the part.
Do you know that the casting director, this is how meticulous Hollywood is. We can do a whole hour podcast on this. Casting director came down 3 times during the year. And I kept getting a call back until then the final casting. So they had 6 bodyguards.
Okay.
And they needed 3. So they would pair us up. Okay, you 3, and then you 3, and then you 3. And I think, you know why they actually chose me? Because it's a Hollywood production. And I was the bodyguard, one of the 6 actors who spoke the best English. So they realized, if we give a direction to him, he can tell the other 2 guys.
Oh, you can tell the other 2 guys.
The other 2 guys are...
The other 2 also Malaysian.
Malaysian Malays.
Okay.
And brother. So I would get the AD would give me the direction. All right, Harith, can you tell the other we're going to be doing the scene like this? Adi cakap, kita jalan. Okay, jom jalan. So I said, no wonder they chose me. I'm the translator
on set.
to the bodyguard. But I'll spend 2 minutes telling you how amazing it was. Kita local production.
Okay.
So shooting in Ipoh for 3 months. I arrived at the hotel, which is a newly built heritage hotel in Ipoh, brand new. I arrived there, shooting next morning. Arrive, Harith, you get your key. So local production, you shoot hotel, you stay with 3, 4, 5, 12 other people in your room lah, local lah. So I was like, who am I sharing with? And no, the room is for yourself.
Chey.
Entire 3 months.
Wow.
Oh, steady. Okay, call sheet comes in. Okay, 6 a.m., meet at the lobby, take you to the location. So I come down, and then the other 2 bodyguards are there.
Okay.
Hey, bro, excited. And then waiting for the transport. And then 3 hotel limo Mercedes. Each of us has 1 hotel limo to take us to the location.
Chey.
And kita pun macam, are we going to the same place? No. Because in Hollywood, if you have a line in a movie, you are considered A or class or something. And then it comes with, you must have your own transport, you must have your own makeup artist. And we arrive at the set and there's these trailers, you know, the trailer with the shower and the... And there's a trailer with my name on it. Like I'm getting a trailer.
Seriously?
Oh, alamak.
Wow.
And then the third assistant director will come in. Okay, Harith, stand by here. You know, don't go anywhere. First day, aku don't go anywhere. Aku buka pintu, tengok. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere.
Cari Jodie Foster.
No, waiting like excited. Then the third assistant director, Harith, we need you on set. And my limo is waiting to take me to the set. So I get into the car, duduk, about 20 meters. Okay, sini. Then I'm like, bang, nanti balik aku jalan. Tak payah bawa. Aku boleh jalan. And this was the standard of the production. And makan is not nasi bungkus, duduk tepi longkang. Makan is catered by the hotel with Japanese, local beef, with dessert. This is like breakfast, lunch, dinner. Oh, kita pun shooting macam ni 3 bulan. And then, makan, you shoot 12 hours. Time is money and money is time, American style. 12 hours, not 12 hour 1 minute. Because when you go 1 minute over, it's 3 times the pay for all the crew. And the crew are American, South African, British, Australian. 500 crew from all over, including Malaysian. Malaysian semua jaga the third camera 3. And then when you shoot, 6 days on, 1 day off. 6 days on. If you shoot, you makan on the set. If you don't have a scene that day, they give you per diem for makan. Per diem makan. Just for makan. 150 USD per day. Because in American mind, breakfast 50 USD, lunch 50 USD, dinner 50 USD. In a hotel,
which may be moderate by US standards.
In Malaysian standards, that's 500-600 ringgit per day. Kita makan roti sekali, nasi. You spend less than 20 ringgit per day. So by the end of the first week, I had speaker, additional Wi-Fi, additional VCD player in my room. All beli kat Ipoh.
Nowhere to belanja semua. So okay, so you sampled life in
pure
the
Hollywood.
Good Lane, Hollywood, and today you're the godfather of stand-up comedy. How does that connect? I thought you would have then maybe ventured straight on into
that movie came at the right time. It was during the collapse. Is 99 1998. So at that time there was no jobs went down and all. Corporate. I was doing corporate stand-up comedy. So I was very fortunate to get that sustained me. For the next year and a half, and then stand-up comedy started in technically 1990. I was just doing it for fun.
Yes.
I've told the story many times. It was just a friend of mine who remembered me as a joker. Her name is Marina Mustafa. Thank you, Marina. Cajoled me and said, Harith, can you go on stage at the lobby lounge of the old Subang Airport Hotel? Tell your funny stories. And what funny stories? I used to make her laugh. She was my college, university friend. She said, you got the story about this, and the story about this, and the story about this, and the story about this. You just tantum all together, and you... And tell stories. So I did that, and people laughed. Then I went to All That Jazz, which is a jazz comedy bar run by Michael Veerapan back in the day in SS2.
Wow.
Rafiq Rashid was performing. He's a musician who would change lyrics to songs. During his break, someone said to him, hey, this kid tells funny stories. So he called me up. I told my funny stories. Someone saw me and was like, hey, I've got this event. Function, dinner. I give you $200. Come and tell your funny stories. Okay. Someone saw me at that show. Hey, I've got this thing. Give you $200. Okay. And then, after 2.5 years, I kept getting different shows. And sooner or later, I was earning more doing this part-time job than I was working in Leo Burnett, because I was still working in Leo Burnett at the time.
I can imagine.
And, the amount fluctuated until 2.5, 3 years. I wasn't taking it seriously. I was just... shot. It's like playing football after work kind of thing. Something I did at night. Until one day, a good friend of mine, Andrew Lessie from the Instant Cafe Theatre, said, hey, Harith, every time you perform at these functions, how much is the agent giving you? In those days, there was no social media. If you had a company function, you had a show, you got hold of an agent. An agent would get you the sound machine, the light machine, the MC, the dancers, the modelling, the musician, the band, and the comedian, whatever. I was the only comedian. And then the client would pay the agent, and then the agent just pay us what they would say that they were worth. And I was telling Andrew, sometimes 200, sometimes 300, sometimes 400, 500. Oh, well, because I'm just doing 30 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And Andrew was like, bro, are you mental? Because he's British. So, are
British.
you mental, mate? The client is paying the agent 2,000 to 2,005 for you. And I was like, is the client mental? Why is the client paying that much? I'm just on stage selling funny stories. And he mapped it out for me. He said, bro, the client is a company. They have 1,000 workers. Once a year, they throw a big bash and they put aside X amount, maybe 500,000, 300,000 for a company dinner, hotel la, band la. And they take that as the value for their 1,000 employees to feel happy.
Yeah.
And you bring that happiness to they're not valuing your 30 minutes. They're valuing what you bring. The outcome to the staff who walk away going, hey, my company best lah. Ada Ellie Cats, ada Harith Iskander buat joke, ada lucky draw, ada.
Yeah.
And then I said, what? Then I realized at that point, oh, wait a minute, this is serious. This is not after work fun anymore. This is, I got to get serious about this. So that's, I would say, 1995, 96, that I began to study stand-up comedy. In those days, there was no internet. There were books, CDs, DVDs, records, LPs, cassettes. Every time a friend went overseas, I said, bro, hey, what do you want from America or London? Can you go to a record store and just pick up anything on stand-up comedy? Books, CDs, LPs, records, cassettes. And so my friends would bring back, how to make jokes, so stand-up comedy shows on VHS videotapes. And then I began to study the craft because I realized, wait a minute, at the moment I'm just on the wing, I'm making it on the fly, I'm just jamming lah. I'm doing what I know and I think is good. But I need to learn from the masters. So I started, then Jerry Seinfeld and Billy Connolly and Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy in those days. So I began to absorb, how are they doing this? Oh, this style macam ni, this style macam ni. Which works for Malaysia, which works for me? And I began to study my craft lah.
So there's a lot of intellectual discourse, because I know I was reading a 2016 interview where you quite candidly said that comedians or performing artists are very intelligent people.
I said that about myself?
No, you said it in general, because it sounded to me like, I mean, maybe
the best
with
ones
all due
are.
respect, I think we take it for granted that it's just a matter of, as you just said, you actually went back to basics and studied and in a way crafted. And I'm sure till today, you would still be maybe picking up on all those those performers, who are the best at what they do.
It's a craft, and there's like life, you can never stop learning. There's no way you can say I know everything. People ask me, do you get nervous? And I say yes, every time. In fact, I want to be nervous because there have been those times that I've been not nervous. I've been I've got this, and then I bomb. It doesn't work because you need to be on a slight edge. It's like a big game lah. You need to be on the edge. If you just waltz casually and everybody's gonna lick my boots, it's not gonna work. You need to be on the edge. You need to be on the brink of failure that pushes you towards greatness. I mean,
it's fantastic.
That's
amazing.
kind of what I.
And I also noticed, looking at your career, there's sort of like milestones. I don't know whether you actually planned it that way. Ultimately, one of the major achievements, of course, is winning the world's best comedian.
It's a competition, funniest person in the world.
Funniest person in the world. I mean, do you, in terms of your career now in reflection, did you sort of like plan it in such a way that you progress, or did it just happen by chance?
Okay.
How do you set your standards?
Okay,
for
that
yourself?
one I have to give full credit to the woman who became my wife, Dr. Jasmine Lim. Prior to meeting her, you saw the early trajectory. First 2.5 years, 3 years, just saja. Then begin to take it seriously. And so I would say, if you looked at the trajectory, it would be like this. This is before social media, where to achieve any form of fame, to use that word. It was a day-to-day grind. It was show by show. And the key is, if the same client call me back next year, means I did a good job this year.
Okay.
And it was all corporate shows. So like that. So when I married Dr. Jasmine in 2010, my wife, although a doctor, is also she's an entrepreneur and a business person, and she sees things very differently. She looked at me and she was like, how come you've only reached this point? And to give you an example, she said, allow me to manage you. And of course, I grew up in an environment like, wife and husband do not mix.
Yeah.
You do not work. I heard all these horror stories.
Yeah.
So it was actually a battle for a while, because I'm like, you're a doctor. Well, how would you know about management? But my wife is the type of person you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to work out how to do it. And that's what she did. So an example, she looked at a billboard, and I had a friend of mine, and she said, have you ever been on a billboard? And I said, no. So in her mind, she's like, I'm going to get you on a billboard in a year and a half. So goal set.
As an advertisement on a billboard?
A billboard, any billboard.
Masa tu belum lagi?
At that time, 2010, no.
Okay.
So, and then she went about doing it, and I ended up on a billboard. Nescafe, I think it was. Halus. So all credit to my wife, because after marrying her, I went from here, and it took this kind of trajectory, which in 2017 ended up in this competition called Finest Person in the World, which I won. Went to Finland, took part, and won there.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, realized, oh my God, everyone in Malaysia was following it.
Yes.
And how did I know it was something? You know when you get off the plane,
Okay.
and you walk down, and then there's a buggy, and then they take the Sultan or the Tan Sri or something, or an old person, and when you see a young person on the buggy, you're like, tak boleh jalan ke? So when I got off the plane, there was a buggy
waiting for you
with flowers.
Wow.
To take me to the press conference.
Shit.
And so I was on this buggy, having all these people looking at me going, tak boleh jalan ke? And I was like, okay, tutup muka sikit. Okay.
Kata, Afin Shauki.
I got mixed up with Afin Shauki. And then the ministers wanted to meet me, but credit given to Dr. Nazri, who was tourism minister at the time.
Yep.
He gave me support before going to Finland for the competition, as well as Dr. Sri Saleh Said Keruak, who was Minister of Communications at the time, who also gave me support before going for the competition. So they were very supportive, and because in qualifying for the competition, to go to Finland for, I think, 9 or 11 days, they were going to give $1,000 US, which was 5,000, to go to Finland for 11 days.
Really?
That won't even pay for my flight.
Yeah, and it's in Finland of all places.
Finland,
with all due respect.
So I got some great support from tourism ministry and the multimedia minister at the time. So when I came back, they were present in terms of talking about it, and then so for a while, it was wow, this is a Malaysian who's won an international competition.
Yeah, and it's a world
and suddenly
best.
Comedy was being taken seriously.
Yeah. So 2 years prior to that, you win the Asian Award, the best comedian. Then it's the world. I mean, maybe at that age or that stage, you've arrived. So what goes through your mind? I mean, what's next? Or, what do you think is going to be your next milestone, if you have one?
Okay, so to be absolutely honest, like I said, this is the ship, but it was actually being guided by Dr. Jasmine.
Okay.
And then, because I had done a stadium show, 9,000 people.
That was a first also?
That was first as well. And, but as a person, I've always, especially just during the pandemic, kind of had a shift in mind. Okay. After that we opened up the Joke Factory, which is a comedy club in KL, because I wanted to let's say, pass on. I wanted to have a space for the generations to come to grow and to experience the craft. But yeah, you're right. It comes to a certain point, like how much higher can you go? And being best or top was never a personal
and you
goal.
can become complacent, or you can, how do I say, in a way, you could also, in a way, lose momentum if you're not careful.
But
I guess.
what I wanted to do is, more importantly, was how to make it sustainable. How can I not say give back, but how can I be part of what is coming next in an effective way?
Can?
Because at the end of the day, you're not in this world alone.
Yeah.
You can be number one at something, but
Yeah.
who are you inspiring to become number one, or who are you training? Who are you? The wake of the path that you're leaving. Who is following there? And I think that is equally as important. So that's what we did with the Joke Factory, as well as what I'm currently working on now, which we can talk about later. But yeah, it was no longer about, because I didn't plan to be considered the funniest or the number one, because it's comedy subjective.
Yeah.
But
you've lasted what, 30 years?
No, 33
Alhamdulillah.
years,
It's amazing. Okay, maybe at this point I want to ask a question that one of our viewers posed. The question is, if you were to turn back the clock and looking at your career or your life in general, what do you feel would you maybe have done differently?
Okay, here's one thing. I'm not one to regret.
Okay.
I find that when you regret something, it's because you've done something wrong or not as good as whatever. I believe, and this is not just a cliche, that even in doing something wrong or not as good as, there's actually a lesson in there, and that lesson may have been equally, if not more powerful than not doing something wrong. So I wouldn't say there's nothing I regret. If anything, I would have been more hardworking, so to speak, in terms of, because when I started, I was the only one for many years.
Yeah.
Stand-up comedy is not a cultural thing in Malaysia. There were duos, A.R. Badul and his partner, and it was all sketch comedy.
Yeah.
So I was alone for a long time. There was Instant Cafe Theatre doing sketch comedy. So because I was alone, I was just cutting my own path, but there was no competition until much later on, 2005 onwards, when competition came along. And then I was like, oh, wow, Douglas Lim was someone that I first mentored.
You mentored him, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So Douglas Lim was a singer-songwriter, busker.
Yep.
He went to the, what's the Malaysian music awards?
MMA?
Malaysian music, what? Malaysian music awards.
Yeah.
And he was part of the Young Pepsi talent, busking and all. And he said he's lugging his guitar and his amplifier. And then he sees Harith Iskander come, not carrying anything, grab the mic, go on stage, do comedy, walk up, and he's like, hey, I want to do that. I don't have to carry my guitar and my amplifier.
So he was actually a busker before he became
a musician.
musician.
A singer-songwriter. So he came up to me and said, and I let him open up for me a couple of times somewhere.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so, and that was then I began to realize, so now there is young pups snapping at my heels. That's when I would say
step up.
Competition is always good.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
You cannot be number one unless there is a competent number two.
Can?
Why be number one when there's nobody else?
Yeah.
How good are you?
Yeah.
So people are like, hey, Harith, all these young people are going to... I'm like, bring it on. It can only spur you. Never, if you have a makan place, a Mexican makan place and another Mexican makan, instead of trying to beat your opponent, use it as inspiration, collaborate, grow bigger. And this is true of anything. I find that a lot of people feel that, especially when they got smaller point of view of the world, oh, budak baru dalam office datang, I got to suck up to the boss more. Yes, you can do that. Or you can be better, because I guarantee you, there's someone going to be better at what you do somewhere. You will never be. I have never called myself the funniest person in the world, or the funniest person in the room. I openly admit there are many other comedians way funnier than me, and I know way funnier comedians who have not reached a certain level in my life. That guy's incredibly. How come he? So there's a whole realm of things.
Yeah.
But my point being, when you see someone who is better than you or coming on your heels, use that as healthy competition or collaborate, because
There's room
guaranteed
enough for
there's
everyone.
room enough for everyone.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as kau kena benci dia sebab they're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Someone copies me,
Take it as a compliment.
you saw that comedian is wearing your same shoes that you're wearing, or you wear suits, tiba-tiba he's wearing suits. You see his style is exactly the same. They're trying to set up like, trying to get some bitching session happening. I'm like, oh, I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
He sees that as, this is a
standard
this is
to
a
follow.
cool standard to
Yeah.
follow. I'm going to try and do that.
Yeah.
Because I did that. I watched Eddie Murphy and his sound effects as a stand-up comedian, and I incorporated that. And then I watched Billy Connolly and Jerry Seinfeld, who would make jokes about nothing, jokes about a pod mic.
Yeah.
And how does he do that?
It's
So I would
amazing.
learn and copy that. So then you find your own voice. So competition is never. Now people go, hey, so and so is getting more famous than you. I'm like, good. How long are you going to be the most famous? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. How? I think this is the learning process that you went through, but obviously it was never always plain sailing, and everyone was so happy. I know, for example, that in between the lines when you did that Netflix show, I Told You So, the responses weren't 100% positive. And how do you, as a professional, how do you maybe handle that? Sort of like a dent in the pride or things, or do you just brush it aside?
Okay.
What's your view?
So as a stand-up comedian, when you hold a singing competition and you have open auditions, 500 people will show up because everyone thinks they can sing. You hold a comedy competition, open auditions, 30 will show up. Why? Because comedy is actually one of the hardest things to do. Why?
Imagine.
When you get on stage and people don't laugh, it's a dent. It's your audience saying, you're not funny. As an adult, how is our reactions when someone says to you, oh, you're not good at that, don't do it. Azman, your podcast not so good. If you, as an adult, you go, okay, I won't do it. As a child, they ride bicycle, they jatuh, they get up. You can learn a lot from children. They cry, but then they ride, jatuh. As an adult, let's go snowboarding. You snowboard, you jatuh, it's too difficult, I'm not going to do it. So we grow into a sense of when we fail, don't do it. So as a comedian, the hardest thing is you're going to fail many times. In fact, I still do fail. In my standard, I fail.
Okay.
No, but that is a dent. How do we get through it? To be honest, in the early days, I'm an introvert. I'm actually outside a public persona. I'm an introvert.
I know that.
So if a show didn't quite work, I would go into my shell and I would block myself off, like literally, don't want to meet anyone.
Wow.
And I would beat myself up until I got to a certain level of maturity. Where I was like, wait, hold on a second. What value is beating yourself up bringing? There's no actual value from it, but there is value from, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Don't go, the audience is no good, or the room was no good, or don't even go, I was no good. Analyze it, work out certain things, and then you'll soon come to a point that, at one point the audience wasn't great, at one point I wasn't great, at one point the room, the environment, and then you tweak to help yourself to fail less, because you're learning from the failure, as opposed to, oh, I was no good.
Yeah, you beat yourself up, sort
And
of
you
thing.
beat yourself up, and then there's no value to that. I'll give you a very interesting. The first when I started getting known, people recognize me. This, once again, before social media, I would get irritated. I'd be walking, I'd drive, I'd stop at the traffic light, and then there'd be a school bus there, and then the kids would be like, "Oh, jangan ketawa, jangan ketawa."
Jangan ketawa.
And in my head, I'd be like, "Apa lagi?" Like I would then get irritated. What the hell? Kampung apa ni, tengok apa ni. I would then allow myself to get into a dark space and get it. That I began walking around
Really?
with blur focus, with intention, because I did not want to react to people who I saw going.
Okay.
I can see people and I would look away, and I just became blur. Like, I'd cross my eyes a bit and just blur, to the point that my friends are like, "Hey, Harith, I saw you that day at the curve. I'm by, you didn't see me." And I just didn't want to face, because I couldn't understand why they were pointing at me. And I'm just doing my thing.
Really?
I got upset.
Wow.
Until my friend, I can't remember who it was, pointed out to me. He said, "Harith, number one, they're excited to see you. All it takes is for you to return that excitement, and the moment is over." Meaning, what I was doing was, once again, what you resist persists. I was resisting the attention and creating dark moment or uneasy feeling in myself based on an event that I didn't create or could control. But I was allowing myself to get upset. And this went on for a good 5 to 8 years. Then, sure enough, traffic light, I see the kids all pointing. I turn around, "Hey!" And they'll be like, "Hey!"
They get excited.
And then the result is you have brought some joy.
Yeah.
And then they'll and they go home and they tell the story, and then you continue, same event, different response and a different emotion and feeling to that event. The event is not creating the hurt, the upset.
Or the
You are creating, not the event.
Kan?
So then now walking, hey, hi, kabar. Yeah, oh.
And you're so used to it.
So then
Kan?
I became very used to it. But I realized in life, events are events. Your reaction to it is more important than what the event dictates you.
And it
You can
benefits
choose.
you. Kan?
And
I mean,
then
of course, the person.
the turnaround is,
yourself.
"Oh, I'm feeling okay that 200 people pointed at me today."
Yeah.
I just way back.
And of course, nowadays with social media, I mean,
now it's
you
different.
get stopped all the time,
Yeah.
I'm sure, for all the
Yeah.
selfies and such. Wow. So, these are interesting things that, we don't normally know of you. We see you on stage all the time or on social media. But thank you so much for sharing. I must mention this. Yes, I know Dr. Jasmine, and by the way, she is a renowned stem cell specialist.
Stem cell, yes.
Yeah, so that's amazing, and we wish her all the best. You have 3 children?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to ask you this question. In years to come, maybe one day when you've got grandchildren, a long time to come, what would you think would be two messages as a grandfather you'd sort of like relay to them?
You're trying to get some tips from me, aren't you, Mr. Grandpa?
No, I'm already a grandfather. But again, I mean, in reflection, if you
right
have
now
all these life lessons.
I'm still dealing with 3 younger children.
Okay.
So,
Or maybe how do you impart wisdom to them today?
you see, I know it's a cliche to say, "Ooh, times have changed," but times really have changed. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. But we must be careful as slightly older people that we don't go, "It was better back in the day."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was better for that moment.
Yeah.
Who was the better player, Pele or Messi?
Yeah.
It's a different time. The ball was different. The pitch was different. The standards of professionalism were different. You can't compare. You really can't compare. So, just as my parents were like, you got to get SPM. SPM is the most important thing in the world. You got to get a degree. Degree is the most important. Right now, I will have that in mind. But what I would like to impart, or I hope I'm imparting, is number one, kindness, thoughtfulness. kesopanan dan kesusilaan, which is in our the Rukun Negara. Just because I believe you create what you create comes back at you. And with kesopanan dan kesusilaan, which includes also, working hard, just being consistent, being. As a parent, we want to give our kids the best, and I think our parents try to do the same for us as well. And there's sometimes in my life I look like, how come my parents macam tu dia, tapi the guy was so lucky, his parents were able to give him this. But no, whatever my parents left, to me in my life's experiences, created who I am today. And I must almost stop myself from like, oh no, I got to do everything for my kids, give them the best of everything. To me, sometimes you learn from something that is not the best of everything. So what you can give is grow up to be kind, thoughtful, polite, looking bigger. Because if you do that in your life, there will be idiots that come at you, with the opposite. But I believe what you give, you will get, and you will get that in abundance coming back at you. Which kind also means opportunity and being able to feel blessed, feel that, wow, you can go through life going, oh, I've got such bad luck. No, I believe you create what you give, you get in return. So is that going to make them millionaires, billionaires, I don't know. To me, not really important. But as long as they're happy and happy doing what they want to do, or happy in, creating value for other people as well. So it's a bit hoo-hoo-ha.
Yeah, but again, it's something that we don't get to think about every day, and we're just doing it, My goodness. Harith, again, I must say it's been a pleasure having you on this program, and it resonates with the DNA of nation builders. You helped build an industry. You helped nurture talent to become a standalone industry. You are the one person, Harith, hand on heart, I would say that you really know how to bring people from all walks of life, all groups of people, whichever economic background, and you actually are able to really jalinkan the fabric of our society, and that to me is nation building. Thank you so much. Please continue doing what you're doing. I know you do so many even philanthropic things, sometimes a lot in private. Just be the person you want. And I hope that many of those in our audience, are inspired by learning a lot more about you. Thank you for sharing some of the inner parts of you too. And, we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And, I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks so much, Azman. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, everyone, a pleasure again having Harith Iskander on our show today, and we hope you enjoyed it. We certainly look forward to even having other guests on our show who will also inspire you in other ways. Till we meet again, have a good week ahead. Assalamualaikum, and wish you well.